Welcome to Bloggers Creating Courses, the podcast which will take you behind the scenes of creating an online course. I'm your host, Verity Songon, founder and education consultant of veritysongon.com. I'm so excited to help you create an online course that you are proud of and to be part of your journey to scale your business as an online course creator. Let's get into the episode. So hi Megan, welcome to the show today. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast, and we have got so much exciting stuff that we are going to be talking about. I feel a lot of things that we're going to be talking about today are kind of the unspoken things about online courses and running an online business, which is really exciting. But before we dive into that, I want to hand over to you and you tell me who you are, what it is you do, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited for the conversation we're going to have and really shining some light on some pretty dark places in the entrepreneurial space, especially in the online space. You know, there's so many things going on in people's lives and businesses that they're keeping kind of tucked away behind the scenes, not talking about publicly. And I think people are just really exhausted and exasperated and looking for a very refreshing perspective on finding this balance between how are we integrating business and life together. So we're going to have a fabulous discussion. Super quick, my name is Megan Huber, and I'm a group program specialist. My background is in education, curriculum development, and I also fortunately got to have an experience working for a multi-million-dollar coaching and consulting company where I was in a leadership position, had my own team, hired my own team, and really got to sit beside the CEO of that level of company and got to work with over 1,000 clients who were all building businesses, and left that company at the end of 2016 and rebooted my own business. And now I really focus on working with women entrepreneurs in the coaching and consulting categories. They have service-based online businesses. And typically I'm working with people once they've already figured out the marketing, the sales, and making money. They have that down pat. They're making multiple 6, even 7 figures. But behind the scenes, things are so incredibly crazy. And they really need to focus now on how am I actually delivering my group programs so that my clients are getting incredible results. I'm renewing clients. They're sending me really high quality referrals. How am I, who am I supposed to be hiring to run my programs for me? And really helping people move out of the day-to-day client delivery and operations so that they can continue to grow their business. So that's it in a nutshell.
I love that. And that's why I really wanted to have this conversation with you. And I'm really glad that we connected, because although a lot of our audience for the podcast are right at the beginning of their course creator journey, I feel that for a lot of people, when they start out creating their course, the 6-7 figure incomes is their goal. But as we were talking about just before we started recording, there seems to be, as you said, almost like a darker side and a side to the 6-7 figure incomes that nobody talks about. And I noticed on your Instagram this morning, well, it was my morning, not sure what time it was for you, but anyway, you popped a post up about saying, in the past few weeks, I've heard countless business owners tell me that behind the closed doors, the large sums of money they're making isn't worth it. And I thought, wow, we need to dive into this. So do you want to tell me a little bit of the story behind that Instagram post?
Yeah. So I wrote that post. So I first wrote that post yesterday, right after I got off a call with someone who's an entrepreneur, makes low multiple 6 figures. She's been in business for 3 years, and we had connected online. She had made a post about, this was a few weeks ago. She had made a post on Facebook, basically like encouraging other women entrepreneurs. It's okay to hit the pause button if you need to hit the pause button for a day. And last year, so 2021, I actually hit the pause button on business development, meaning like marketing and promoting and sales in my business for about 6 months. And so my comment on her post was, or try 6 months. Like sometimes you might need to take a pause longer than just a day. because just pausing for a day is typically not what any of us needs. We literally need to reimagine the way that we are approaching not just our businesses, but also our lives. And that was just something I was going through. And I still had clients, I still had programs to run, I was maintaining everything and delivering. I just wasn't out there selling and pushing and trying to make all this money because I needed to do a reset. I needed to figure out why am I feeling the way I'm feeling with my health, in my own household, with my family. Like things are just out of balance and I need to figure out what this is and do business in a very different way. And so my comment on her post spurred her reaching out to me via private message. And she goes, I cannot stop thinking about your comment. I want to hear more. And so I just shared it with her, like we were doing a back and forth Facebook Messenger kind of voice memo. And so a couple more weeks passed by and we got on a call yesterday. And so that was the first time that I saw her face to face and we had a conversation and we were just talking about the reality. And she was telling me that, the last 3 business coaching programs she's taken, and I know who those people are. I was actually in one of those particular programs and worked with one of those people for 4 years, and they're brilliant. We're still great friends. I have the utmost, they're brilliant at what they do. And they've been in business making millions of dollars for 20 years. But what we're seeing in the business coaching category in this online space is that people are teaching marketing, sales, and how to make money. And it's almost like how to make money at any cost, like whatever it takes, whoever you can get in your programs, whatever you can charge. And then we have this whole thing around just raise your rates. But for why? For what reason are you raising your rates? And so people are being trained to make as much money as they can in as little time as possible. But then here's what happens. And this is what this person told me. And this is one of 10 or 15 conversations I've had in the very recent past. And she goes, well, now I sold all this stuff. And I realized once these people got in my program, they're not really the ideal client. They're extremely needy. They're not where they should be in order for me to be serving them. And I didn't charge enough money. And now I've got to be all in 24/7 in delivering what I sold. And now I have 3 team members that I have to pay. And there are times I'm not even paying myself.
Wow.
And I can see that I'm having personal issues. I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not working out like I used to. My husband is starting to have some emotional things come up because I'm not even focused on him. And I've got kid drama and all these things, but I've got to keep feeding the beast. And now I've got to take my foot off the gas pedal of marketing and selling and bringing any new clients in because I'm so focused on delivery, because now I've got to keep these clients, which I probably won't keep half of them. And then what happens is those contracts end and you've got to repeat that process all over again because now you've got to go make all that money all over again. And you repeat that same cycle over and over and over and over and over again. And it's lasting for years in women's lives and businesses. And sure, they're making multiple 6 figures, high 6 figures. I'm even having these conversations with people making 7 figures.
Wow.
And they're literally saying to me, I messaged my old corporate boss from 10 years ago to see if he had a position for me. These are people making 7 figures in their business.
Wow.
Because it's just crazy making, and people are not being taught, how do I actually run the back end of my business so that it can function without me being so incredibly heavily involved, but yet we're still taking really excellent care of our clients. So that's where that post came from. It's having all these kind of secret conversations, because the truth is none of these women are out talking about it publicly because they're afraid nobody's going to buy from me if they know it's a clown show behind the scenes. And that's the reality of it. But they can't stop, or they think they can't stop because then they can't pay the bills. It's crazy, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Absolutely. And there's so many points that, oh my gosh, you're just it's like music to my ears, because so often I have these conversations with clients and people who I coach. And, people say to me, I want to get this course set up by the end of the week because within the next few months, this is my income goal. And you're like, well, that's great. I'm all about having goals, but can we elongate these goals a little bit? Because we've got to be realistic. And as you said, what you end up doing, enrolling people who, as you said, aren't your ideal students. And where's that going to get you? Well, you're not going to be able to upsell to them. You're not going to retain them. You're not going to be getting, your testimonials and all this kind of thing. And you're not getting fulfillment out of your business. It's not, because nobody sets up their business to not get their ideal client. We all set up our businesses because we want to share what we know. We want to empower people. We want to educate, whatever our end goal is. But as you said, you end up almost on this hamster wheel. And if nobody's talking about these difficulties, how can anybody support each other, and how can we help each other? And then we just end up in this case where everybody's miserable, but nobody knows that everybody else is miserable. It's so important to share. Really, really is.
Yeah. People are, the word on the street. And again, it's interesting, again, because people aren't really they're not talking about the reality of what's going on publicly, again, because they don't know, but people are really searching for leaders right now. It's like there's two camps, and you and I have both been in this industry long enough to know what those two camps are, and we've probably experienced both of them. But the two camps I see, one camp is everything is about the numbers, just go make the money, as much money as you can, raise your rates. It's just almost a little bit more corporate-y operating and corporate-y sounding, but it's just like the only thing that matters is numbers and revenue, and just go out and make a bunch of money. Yeah. And I've taken those programs, and the way that they're structured, many of them are actually delivered in a really great way that are super supportive to the clients. But the way that they're running things and the way they're teaching their clients to do business, you get really burned out about 90 days in. But then the problem is you can't take your foot off the gas pedal, or else you're losing. Well, you're just not making money. So you feel like you have to repeat it. And then it's leading to this incredible exhaustion and burnout. But then the other camp is it's like fairy dust. It's airy fairy, just have fun. Just go be yourself. You're the magic. You're all the power. You're enough. People should want to be in your proximity. People are working with you because it's your energy. And if you just show up as yourself, you're going to make all this money. And I get both. I really, really do. I really get both. And both, to a degree, are necessary. But they're both opposite ends of the spectrum. It's kind of like politics, where like in the US, we have far-leaning left and far-leaning right, but those are the extremes, and it's not actually very many people. And then you've got people like me, and I'm kind of like somewhere in the middle of all that, like a little bit more libertarian. And so when we look at business, there's so much in the middle that is missing in the way that people are being trained and taught to build a business. It can't be all one or all the other. You really have to have a nice integration of both. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear from you. I know you're working with a lot of newer people who are taking a skill, something that they are extremely good at, that they can now turn into a course. And from your perspective, like, do you see people almost having this tendency to go in this direction that we're talking about here? And if so, how are you communicating with them? There's a better way to do this, and really looking at that long game, because it's easy to get sucked into what we're talking about. It's very easy to get sucked into this.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, and you're completely right. A lot of the people who I work with, it's a case of, I've got this skill, I've got this idea, and either this is going to be my business in terms of my online courses are going to be my business, or it's going to be an addition to the business that I've currently got. And because of either of those two drivers, it's seen that the online courses it's all about the money, as you said, or 9 times out of 10, it's about the money. I actually worked with a client not too long ago, and it was really interesting for me because their goal was not about the money at all. Their goal was, how many people can I reach with this particular message? And within the space of about 12 months, we got them to 1,000 students. And I was telling somebody else about this, and they were like, they got to 1,000 students and they weren't worried about the money. I said, no, because for them, it was about reach and it was about getting the message out there. And it's kind of that idea of, well, how are you measuring success? Because if we're always measuring success, I mean, don't get me wrong, we need to have an income. We need the fridge to be full. We need the electricity to be paid and all the rest of it. But if we're always measuring success in terms of money, then how are we necessarily going to know that our business is going in the right direction? How do we know if where we're leading our business is going in the right direction? So what I like to do is, whenever I talk to clients, is really bring them back to two main points. First of all, what is your point? And I know that might sound a bit strange, but what is your kind of goal? What is it that you actually want to teach? What is that main thing that is driving you to create this online course or this coaching service, whatever it is? And my second one is, who is your student? I'm not talking about who is your ideal student. I'm not talking about who is your student who you're going to try and grab with your Instagram post to buy, but who is your student who fits this particular course. So what I mean by that is, I gave an example to a client recently, and just to throw in a little caveat or disclaimer here, I know nothing about crocheting, which is probably why I always use it as an example. But if somebody like me is being pitched a crocheting course, for example, who is it that's pitching to me, and am I the ideal client for you? So, I'm in my 30s, I'm a mum, and I know nothing about crocheting. So if I see an Instagram post advertising to me a crocheting course, are you just grabbing me just because I don't know anything about crocheting? Or am I actually the client that you want, because you're going to take me through an introduction to crocheting course, and then you're going to want me to buy into your next stage of your course, and I'm going to go on this whole transformative journey, and within the next 12 to 18 months, is there such a thing as an expert crocheter? You get my point. I've, really upped my level, and I understand not just the basics, but I've gone through those, we talk about in education scaffolding, but I've gone through those different scaffolds, and my knowledge has really, really upped. Mm-hmm. So I always take it back to clients who I work with. What's your point? What is it that you're trying to deliver? And who is your student? Who's the student that's going to fit what you're putting out there? And I did a coaching session just last week, and when I put that to the client, or the girl that I was coaching, and I said, who is your student? She goes, that's actually a really good question. I said, right, okay, we need to go right back then. What information does your potential student already have about the information that you're going to give them? Are they absolute newbies? Are they a bit of a novice? Have they got hobbyist knowledge? Have they got educational knowledge? Like, who is this person that you're pitching to? Because if you just start throwing up, I keep going for Instagram, but Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, if you just throw out stuff on social media, are you going to be attracting the right person? Because otherwise you're going to get into exactly that issue that you're explaining, that everybody's going to be like, oh, look, there's a crocheting course, I'm signing up to that. But then as soon as they've parted with their money and they start lesson 1, 50% of them realize, oh, actually, I already know half of this stuff, so I don't need to continue with this. The other, however many percent, go, this is way too difficult for me. I needed to know a load of stuff beforehand. And before you know it, your course is only relevant to maybe 5-10% of people who, and even we know that continuation rates after courses and completion rates aren't very high as it is. So again, if you've got maybe only like 10% of people who are then your ideal student, are they going to be following through? And can you upsell to them for when your next program comes out? Can you sell to them a one-to-one coaching service? Well, actually probably not, because you haven't captured your ideal student in the first place. So that was a very long way of answering your question, but I would say yes, the money driven does tend to be the major factor for a lot of people, but it's bringing it back to those 2 points. What is it that you're trying to deliver, and who is it you're delivering it to?
Yeah, that's so interesting. So I've had 2 separate coaching businesses. Like I said, I didn't really say I had 2 businesses, but I did say I worked behind the scenes for a major coaching company. And I was the program manager and held a leadership position. And I had my own coaching business for a couple years before that. And it was that experience in the mid 2000 teens. So this was 2000, end of 2013, all the way through the end of 2016, And we would have, and these were year-long group coaching programs. And we also had like a higher level mastermind. We had another higher level mastermind. And then we also ran like an online version of the live group program. And I was creating and running all of those.
Wow.
And we had up to about 300 people in one of those single programs. So all in all, I was serving maybe up to 500 to 600 people at one time throughout the 4 programs. And I would still consider myself at that time, I was still a newbie in the coaching or online training industry. Even though my background was in teaching, public education, course creation for online public schools, and that kind of thing. But this was really like this massive, all at one time exposure to how are people filling these programs with hundreds of people or thousands of people, and how are they having multi-million-dollar launches? And at that time in my life, I was super enamored by that. It's like, wow, you can make so much money launching and and all these big names in the industry. And then when I'm behind the scenes of a company, and then I'm the one servicing the 300 or 400 clients in the program, I really started paying attention to, do we have the right people in the program? To your point, because as an educator, and you and I both know this, our eyeballs are on the student. Like, we're really paying close attention to the student, how we help the student make progress, how we can best help the student get the result. And over, the program was 12 months. About 90 days in, I would track the first mass exodus of people just falling off. They weren't like doing chargebacks or asking for their money back. It wasn't that. They just stopped showing up. They just stopped doing the work. They just stopped consuming. And it was a significant percentage of people 90 days in. Then I would see it happen again at 6 months. So another 90 days would pass and I would see it again. And we would just have like this massive drop off. Then I would actually see it again 9 months in, but it was a really, really small percentage. And then I looked at this. I noticed that out of 200 to 300 people in a program, I could count on 2 hands how many of those people in a business coaching program were actually making multiple 6 figures. And then after the program was over, went on to continue to make 7 figures. And the people who were that successful in that program back in 2014 and 15, they still have a 7-figure business today. And it was only about 10 of them out of, let's just say, 250. But when they're in the program and I'm watching this, it's like, what's happening to the other 90% or 95% of the people in the program? They're not seeing even remotely close to those kinds of results. And so to your point, I do believe that people tend to be so much more driven by the money. I don't know that they are there. I don't believe that people are intentionally or maliciously or consciously out there manipulating people just so they can make money. I'm sure those people exist, but I don't really think that's the big problem here. I just think that the big problem is where people are learning about what it means to run and own a real operation, it's just lacking. They're just being told to make more money. And then we fall into this comparison trap online. I'll go back to the conversation I just had yesterday with this person. And she goes, she's like, I've taken 3 programs now, which are all the same, just teaching me how to make more money. But she was like, heck, I need somebody to teach me how to actually deliver what I sold and deliver it in a way that isn't overtaxing me and deliver it in a way where clients are getting results. She goes, I need somebody to show me infrastructure. I need somebody to show me how the heck to lead a team. And you and I, again, we're educators and we grew up in an educational system as teachers and educators. That delivery piece for you and I is actually really easy. It's so much easier because we have the training and we have the background and we have the degrees in that. So, from your perspective, where do people really need to up their skill development and their I would say even focus on delivering a product, whether it's a course or a group program, but working with a group of people that is at a high level of excellence, that is tracking the client's progress. Like, are they actually making progress in your program? Are your clients seeing phenomenal results? Because here's the truth. When you deliver in that way, that's what's going to keep clients renewing. That's what's going to upsell clients into the next thing. That's what's going to encourage your clients to bring in really, really great high quality referrals. And it's 7 times more expensive to acquire a new client than it is to keep an existing client. And so much of that has to do with client satisfaction and client results, which falls into the category of delivering the course and delivering the group. So from your perspective, what are some things that, the entrepreneur needs to really be paying attention to once they've done the selling and now they have all these people in their course or their group so that they're delivering at a high level of excellency?
I think that's a brilliant question. And one thing that I always go back to with clients is think about your customer service. And immediately people look at me and they go, but I'm not selling, like I'm not in a shop. What do you mean my customer service? They're not phoning me up. I'm not Sky's helpline or whatever. It's like, no, you're not. But you are selling a product. You're working in your business. You've got a customer service journey that you need to take people on. So think about that right from the beginning. So for example, one of the things that I'm putting together at the moment is a membership. And that's it right from the beginning. Before, I'm not even thinking at the moment of the actual content of that. I'm thinking, what is my customer experience? How is my customer coming to me? How am I, what are my landing pages? What's my marketing looking like? And then what is my actual journey going through, my cart abandonment sequence, for example, my enrollment sequence. What are all of these things? What are my terms and conditions going through? Am I answering all the questions and frequently asked questions? And this is what I say to clients so often is it's those quote unquote back end and boring bits. Those are the things that you need to pay in some ways just as much attention to as your actual product, because nobody likes reading terms and conditions. They're boring. Nobody likes writing a privacy policy. It's not interesting. And I get that. But at the same time, if we think about that idea of scaffolding, it's literally the bricks and mortar. They are the slats of wood which are holding up your business. And it comes back to that idea of working in your business versus working on your business. It's really fun for a lot of content creators, myself included, to work in your business because a lot of the time we're teaching the things that we like to do. I love education. There's a reason that I teach people how to teach online because, like you said, it's our bread and butter. It's just something I really, really enjoy. And for me, it's really easy to sit in my business and teach people to teach all the time, which is all well and good. But I also need to work on my business and work on the business side of things. And this is what I say to people. And people are like, but what do you mean work on your course and not in it? I'm like, well, when you're working in your course, you're teaching it. You're teaching whatever your skill is, whatever your expertise is. But you also need to work on your course, i.e., what is your course curriculum? What's the shell of your course looking like? Going back to what you were saying as well, what are your retention rates? What are your completion rates? If you've got assessments within your courses, even if they're not formalized and summative, even if they are just quizzes, what are your quiz results looking like? What are your assessment results looking like? Because that kind of information is going to be telling you how your students are interacting with your information. What are your evaluation forms? Do you even have an evaluation form process? And a lot of people will say to me, yeah, I've got an evaluation form. Great. What are you doing with those results afterwards? Well, they sit in my Google Forms. Right. No. I want you to tell me that you've got an Excel spreadsheet somewhere and you're coming down and you're drilling down with those numbers and what a percentage thought of this section and what's your qualitative results for this, that, and the other. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to evaluation forms for courses, I have to say, but that's working on your business and working on your course, because from there, you're going to see the holes. You're going to see where the business development sections are needed, where the course development sections are needed. So I think it's those conversations that I so often have with people is it's fun putting the skills together to teach somebody about your skill, but what is it that you're doing that works on your course and not just in your course? I realize that I'm not on YouTube and I'm waving my hands around an awful lot. I must be making you seasick. But it really, really does come down to how is you're setting up this course or you're teaching something as part of a business structure, and you have to remember that it's part of a business structure. It's very easy to go online and we get our subscription to Teachable or Thinkific or LearnWorlds, Kajabi, whatever it is that we want to use. But it's not just a case of recording a load of videos, shoving them online and going, haha, I've got a course, and selling it. It's what is that wider business model that it fits into?
Mm-hmm.
As you said, how are you tracking your student satisfaction, your student retention, your evaluations? You know, having those simple questions at the end, even, would you recommend this course to someone else? And people go, oh my gosh, that's a brilliant idea. Yes, it is, because if 60% of your students are saying, yeah, I really enjoyed it, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody else, well, that's kind of telling us that we need to go along and we need to look at the curriculum, the delivery, whatever it is. There's something along that journey that hasn't quite fitted what the student needed at the end. And I agree with what you were saying as well. I think you raised a really, really interesting point that so many courses about creating an online course or about building a business, they've got all of the information there. But I think what a lot of people miss a lot of the time that is that when you're teaching somebody how to do something, it's not just a case of what I call brain dumping. You can't just turn around to somebody and say, this is everything that I know about a subject. Because if we were all taught in that way, nobody would get anywhere. We've got to go right back to the beginning of what is it that we're trying to teach someone. So if we're teaching somebody to start up a business, that's going to be so different to what you deliver, which is taking somebody from point B to point C.
Mm-hmm.
With your clients, they've already got to point B or even point C. You're taking them on to C or D. You're taking them further. So for you to concentrate on those earlier stages doesn't make sense to your clients. And again, to that end, if we flip that around, if we've got those business programs that are working with brand new business setups, if they're trying to give information like this is how you get to 6-7 figures, well, that's really interesting. But if you're not even making 3 or 4 figures in your business yet, that's completely unattainable. You've got to earn the 3 or 4, well, you've got to earn the tens of figures first, but you've got to earn the 3 or 4 figures before you can even think about the 5, the 6, the 7 figures. I mean, most people have got that goal. Most people have got that goal of let's go for 6-7 figures. Yes, but what is our strategic roadmap? And I think that comes back to what we were both saying earlier on, is that the course structure has got to be there. And what is that goal? What is that journey that you're taking people on? Because otherwise you're just going to start leading people up a garden path. But that's when we start seeing what you were saying about how we have student dropouts, because they're not immediately seeing those results. I mean, if I came to your program, your website's incredibly clear. I'm not going to sign up to your program if I'm not fulfilling the criteria to your program, because it's very clear from your from your homepage exactly what business clients you serve. And I think that's the issue, is that so often people don't have those clear cut points on their website. Is, well, I'm going to teach you to scale your business to 6 or 7 figures, but they miss out that key bit that's on your website of you have to already be in this stage before I can help you take that. So for a lot of new business owners, if they see something with no caveats and it just says I'm going to help you scale to 7 figures, yeah, of course I'm going to sign up to that, because I want to be earning 7 figures within the next 6-9 months. But then, as you said, 3 months goes past, not seeing that result, so I might drop out. Or even if I want to stick with that, I get to 6 months. Actually, I've been in this program 6 months, so I'm not even earning my 4 or 5 figures. So when am I going to suddenly get to my 7 figures? And I think that goes back to what I was saying about brain dumping. But yeah, and you've got to go back to that scaffolding. What are your foundations? What are you building up to? And what is that goal that you're taking your students to? And not over promising as well, because I think quite often as content creators, as course creators, people can get stuck in this idea that unless I promise the world, nobody is going to buy my course. It's like, no, that's not the case at all. If I go back to my crocheting example, for somebody like me, I just need to know, well, first of all, I need to know even what kind of needles I need and what kind of crocheting wool is that. Either way, you know what I mean. I need the tools. You don't need to promise me that I'll be able to stitch the most amazing jumper by the end of the course, because I need the basics. It's the same with a business course, same with whatever kind of course you're delivering. You need to be able to take people on a realistic journey. And I think that that's something that sometimes gets missed out, or quite often can end up getting missed out when selling courses. I don't know, does that relate to?
Yes. So I have so much to say about this. One of the things that we're talking about here, what you were starting with, is there's a really big difference between an ideal client and a qualified client. And so what happens to a lot of people, course creators and group program leaders, is that they have a bunch of ideal clients in their program and they have very few qualified clients in their program. And so you want to know, I teach my clients, what are the 3 to 5 pieces of criteria that someone needs to already meet so that when they enter into your program, they have the previous, like the prerequisite knowledge, skills, and hard tangibles. I'm not talking about soft characteristics or soft traits, hard tangibles that it's actually viable for them to be able to understand and implement and then get a result from exactly what you're teaching in like week 1 in the program, month 1 in the program. And that's what we're talking about here. And I think this conversation is also the lack of qualified clients in programs, in courses and groups, is what also leads to the leader being exhausted and burnt out. And I've actually been in that place before, leading a group, because sometimes you think you have the right people in the program, or you think you communicated that correctly, or you got on a sales call with somebody and they just had like super duper great energy, and you just like, it's almost like they sold themselves on you, but they were missing key component parts to actually be successful in your program. But what happens to the leader is you get all those people in your program and you've got a curriculum mapped out and you know what your expertise is in, but then you've got like 20 clients in a program and 10 different pathways that you need to be teaching now. And then your clients start telling you, well, I don't really want to do what you're teaching me in the way that you're teaching it to me to grow my XYZ. Can you show me how to do it this way? But then you want to make the person happy. You don't want to lose the money. You don't want to make them angry. And so then you make yourself go learn that skill and then you try to teach them. But you've got people on like all these different pathways and you're trying to be an expert in things that you're not an expert in. That is where I'm seeing a lot of people get very caught up and super burned out because they're doing work that they don't really want to be doing, that they really shouldn't be doing. And that's because they've let too many ideal clients in their program, not qualified clients in their program. And when I ask people like, what makes your client qualified? They literally will say things like, oh, well, they have a high level of wealth consciousness. They're super ambitious and they're committed and they'll do the work. And I'm like, that's not a qualified client. What does someone need to already have in place and have already mastered before they even get into your program so that they can make progress and be successful in your program? And we just have our courses and groups filled with too many people who don't meet that criteria because the leader hasn't thought about it in that particular way. And again, this is not being done, I believe, from a malicious, like malice intent. It's not coming from that place. It's coming from, I think for a lot of people, I think some of it is, well, I want to hit my money goals. I do think that is playing a role. But I also think that a lot of us who are helpers and leaders and teachers, we want to help everybody. And I know when I was a teacher in the classroom, I had such a heart for like the most at-risk students who were so at risk of not even graduating, but they were brilliant, right? They just didn't have the environment at home or they didn't have the support. And so as helpers and teachers, we want to help everybody. And we think everybody can be successful. And we believe in everybody and we believe in everybody's potential, but we're not for everybody. Our courses and our groups are not for everybody. And we're actually setting ourselves up and our clients up for failure if we're not approaching this from a very different way than a lot of the examples that we have in this space. And then I love what you were talking about with the collecting evaluation forms and feedback forms from your clients. I think that it is scary to do that as the leader because we are human and we very easily take things personally. And we think that if someone has an experience that isn't like a 10 out of 10 in our program, that they just don't like us. And so it's this fear of being rejected, of being criticized, judged, abandoned. And so what happens is we avoid those things. We avoid even collecting that information because it's like, well, if I don't see it and I don't hear it, then it's not happening and I don't have to deal with it. But that's incredibly invaluable. I mean, you were talking about some of the specific questions you could ask people. Another one that you also want to be asking people throughout the course of your program is, what are you going to do next? Are you going to retake the program? Or are you going to buy another one of our programs? Are you going to move into this program here? I was actually asked this question in a form, on an evaluation form in a program that I'm in. And I said, I'm exiting after this, because that was one of the answer choices. One of the answer choices was, when I'm done, I'm exiting. But as the leader, you need to know that. Because if someone's saying, I'm exiting, then somebody on your team needs to get on a call with that person and find out how they can improve, because you might be able to save the client and keep the client and renew the client. Nobody's reached out to me on the team on this particular company. So interesting. If the client is saying, I definitely want to move into your next level program, you need to know that, because the way that you're serving your clients based on the responses they're giving you, it's going to change. And that's really where your customer service comes in too. So, I really want to encourage everybody, don't be afraid of collecting that evaluation and feedback on your clients every step of the way of the program. Collect it, because you're going to have a better experience. Your company is going to have a better experience, and so are your clients.
Absolutely. And there's something I want to pick up on that you were saying there. You said about somebody from the team to, can reach out. Now, I think that mention of teams is so, so important, because so often people come to me and, they'll start talking about these 5-6 figure launches, 7-figure launches, whatever. And what we don't see behind the Instagram posts, behind the LinkedIn posts, wherever it is that you've seen this, is the team of people. You see the face. What you don't see is the marketing behind that. You don't see the people who have helped develop the curriculum. You don't see the beta testers. You also don't see the years that it's taken for people to get to that point. But I don't know about you, but I am not aware of a single 6 or 7 figure business owner who has done everything by themselves, like just them. Everybody who has got to that stage, to my knowledge, or the people that I know, have had teams along the way. Now, there might not be teams of people that they have directly employed. It might be that they've outsourced those services, but it's still made up a team of people. And I think that is something that doesn't get spoken about enough as well. And when people say to me things like, I want, this is my revenue goal or anything like that, it's like, that's great. But I just want to be completely realistic that it's great that you've got your business to this point in the moment, and huge congratulations on that. But if you want to get to those higher stages, which, by the way, I'm not the coach for, because I'm about starting you out and getting you going, you need to go to a different coach or work with a different, business model to expand even further, because that's not my area of specialties at all. They'd come to somebody like yourself. Is, yes, you might be doing this by yourself at the moment, but that next stage you're not going to be doing by yourself. That's not going to be. And I think that doesn't get addressed enough. And I think people immediately think, whoa, I'm getting these 6 figures in, that's going in my back pocket. Actually, when you start dividing up wages, that's not an awful lot that is, like, I mean, yes, there is a lot that goes in your back pocket, but like I said, when you start dividing up those wages or paying out for those services, if you've got someone to do your Pinterest, someone to do your social media, someone to do, get your photographs, this, that, whatever it is, that 6 figures is not going in directly into your bank account. And if it is, it's going out to pay different services. And I think that doesn't get spoken about enough in the online course space. I don't know if you've got experience or anything you wanted to add into that.
Yeah, and people are really blindsided by that, again, because it's not being taught. Like, to your point, it's not being taught until people get to these. It's being taught when people are in circles where everybody's already making 7 figures or multiple 7 figures. It's talked about there, but you don't really see it in the earlier stages. You don't really see it in anybody who's teaching people how to start a business, because again, all they're teaching is how do I make money? And then it's your money's literally already accounted for and going out the window before you've even made it. And that's the vicious cycle. And I've been there. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I haven't been there. I have been there. And it is close to impossible to get off of that train because it's a runaway train. And you really do have to find someone. I mean, I hired a financial coach because I was like, nobody's teaching me how to do this. And I'm caught up in the cycle and I'm caught up inside of it. And it's so hard to see it from another perspective when you're in it. And it wasn't until I hired a financial coach where I actually was doing that properly, but clawed my way out of that cycle because, you know, it did impact at that time. It really impacted where we were spending money personally. And we had to change our lifestyle. We had to change a lot of things so that we were keeping more of our money versus it being accounted for before it even came in. Because then all you're doing is you're just chasing money. And I think that's what's happened to a lot of people. They're just chasing money. But that's a whole other conversation, like you said.
I love that you mentioned about having a finance coach, because that was an area that needed exploring in your business. And I think what's really important when people are looking for coaches and looking to move forward is they get the right coach. So as I said, you know, I work with people right at the beginning of their online course journey. You are working with people who actually are on, you know, that probably a few stages on from where I'm working with them. So it's all very well identifying that you need help in an area, but what's really important is that you do your research and you make sure that the coach or the program that you're buying into is the right person for your needs at that particular time. And I mean, there's some people that I've kind of like got on a bit of a spreadsheet that I think actually when I reach this troubleshooting need in my business, that I'll approach them then, but I'm not approaching them right now because they're not what I need right now for me. And I think that's smart. Really important about what you were saying.
That's so smart. That might be one of the best takeaways. I mean, this conversation has been amazing, but that right there, I bet almost no one is doing, right? Like that is super conscientious of you. I think you and I are both we score very high on conscientiousness, but you know, I think the lack of people not doing that, it's why they're joining programs that they then feel burned by. And then we have this like blame game happening. But to your point, if people would be more self-aware about this is where I am and this is where I need to get to before I need to solve this problem and this is what the problem is going to be, go ahead and start researching those people. And I love the idea of the spreadsheet. That's so brilliant. So brilliant.
I'm not saying it's the right spreadsheet, but it's good to have plans. It's good to have goals. But we have covered so much. I have loved this conversation. We've really, I think, turned itself on its head about the reality of 6 and 7 figure course launches and businesses and what have you, which has just been absolutely amazing. But what I want you to do is please tell our lovely audience, where can they find out more about you if they want to connect with you, read more Instagram posts from you, tell us where we can find out more about you.
Yeah, the best place to go is my website. It's www.meganjohnsonhuber.com. And that's where my podcast is, social media links, free resources, how we work with people. It is all there.
Brilliant. We'll get that all linked down in the show notes. Well, Megan, thank you so much for your time today. It has been a fantastic episode and I've really enjoyed myself. So thank you for joining us.
Awesome. You're so welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Bloggers Creating Courses. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, leave a rating and a review. Ratings and reviews help us to reach more people who want to build and scale their online course. So you're really helping to widen the support for our blogging community. To catch all of the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram @VeritySongon. I'll see you next time. Happy content creating.